For all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the hard to say, for everything that comes and goes along the way, I'm gonna celebrate. I still remember that place and time, just shy of 20 when I realized that someday I was gonna die, and it could be soon. I was lying in that hospital room with all the tests that they were putting me through. When I got out, everything seemed new. I felt so alive. So for all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the hard to say, for everything that comes and goes along the way, I'm gonna celebrate. I had a love that I was promised to, then she became someone I hardly knew. All the paths that she was winding through didn't wind my way. Sometimes your plans, you gotta let them go. Get into growing like you've never grown. Hands on the handles of the great unknown and cut the lines away. So for all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the hard to say, for everything that comes and goes along the way, I'm gonna celebrate. Ooh, ah yeah. Ooh, ah yeah. For every indecision when I lost my way, every moment wishing for the words to say, all of them, they made me who I am today. And so I celebrate. For all the biggest moments in the everyday, the happy and the sad and the kind of hard to say, for every hand I'm holding as I'm fading away, I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate. I'm gonna celebrate.
Oh, my friends, are we in for a treat today? If you are here, welcome. If you can share this later with someone else, please do. Because here's the thing. We all know that there are incredible speakers out there who are the surprise and delight speakers. We know that there are speakers who are experiential and will perform and do great things from a stage. But then there are those speakers who take that level of performance, understand the neuroscience and how it plays into us so that we can really understand and learn new ways, fire off new synapses, get into flow state, which our other speaker is going to be talking about as well. And all of those experiences are what becomes the transformation. I've been doing this work for over 25 years, working with incredible speakers. And I have to say, we are living through such a wondrous time in this space right now. If you are one of my agent colleagues watching this, if you are a meeting planner watching this, if you are a C-suite leader who is wondering, how are you going to bring someone to your next conference, to your boardroom meeting, to an internal small team meeting and create truly effective change? There are speakers like Peter Katz and Diane Allen who will be with me today, who are the ones who are creating transformation deep from the inside out, again, connecting to the neuroscience of how this plays out. And that is why we wanted to showcase this event today, Reframing the Experiential Keynote. Because again, I know I have a lot of conversations with agents, and sometimes we talk about speakers who do performance from the stage. And we wonder, are you just pitching them as a performer only when someone wants a performance? That is not what these two speakers are. Yes, they will perform. Yes, they will give you a performance, but they are going to light up your people with such depth that it is the kind of depth that truly sustains that transformational work. So Peter Katz, who just opened up for us here today, I mean, he is an award-winning singer-songwriter who is also a certified facilitator, keynote speaker, who truly goes deep with his clients before he hits that stage. I've known Peter for over 5 years now, and he's made incredible impact in so many audiences. And I'm just so grateful to be able to work with him and bring him here today. He's my friend. I can't wait to get into this with you. And then we also have Diane Allen, 15-year concert master. Diane, I mean, I know a lot of agents who have booked Ben Zander over the years, and these incredible leaders, led many concerts, has also taught people how to lead, has taught leaders how to lead people like as if they're leading, an orchestra. And what I love about your work is that you help us get into flow state. You reverse engineer what that is, and you help individuals get into their own flow state. And as we always say, right now is the time, right, Diane? Leaders can no longer bear the burden of all of this change, all of this disruption, all of this transformation by themselves. So people like you are helping their people get into their own flow state so they could really transform. So welcome, Diane, as well. And I'd love to bring both of you into the opening of this conversation. Friends, can I just clap first? Peter, I've not heard that song, right? And I'm just so excited. I mean, we are what we celebrate is so much of what you talk about. And we wanted you to open today with just that, right? Without any other intros. That's what we wanted to do. Because I wanted to experience it too, right? It's just in the moment, the calming sense of it, the just finding our spot. But I want both of you to speak to that, right? Because that's where you both talk about there is a true neuroscience about something that grounds us, that calms us, that gets our head and our synapses fired off in the right way. So Peter, since you started us off with a song, please share some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's funny, Mirjana, by the way, it's so nice to be with you, and nice to be with you too, Diane. I actually sort of iterated on this for years, right? Because when I used to play concerts all the time, I would always come out and just play my first song before saying anything to the audience. And then I used to do that initially as a speaker. And then for years, I was like, oh no, I need to tell them what we're going to do and what this is about. And I sort of went back and forth. And probably 3 years, I was wrestling with what to start with. And then one day, I went back to just opening with a song without saying a word. And I realized that that was really the most powerful thing that I could do, because all the things that were about to come next were better by having allowed that moment of transition, right? I feel like there's so many different ways that we can utilize music, but one of the most powerful ways at the beginning of the experience is literally to move people into their bodies, into their hearts, into their physiology. We actually process music in the same place that we process our feelings. And so it's kind of this direct path to allow us to kind of soften, to move into that place where we're actually able to receive the information from an experiential learning perspective. We're going to retain more. We're going to be able to have our own, thoughts that we're going to be able to associate with what's being shared. There's so much value in just allowing people to, think about being at a conference. There's been a million things going on. You're maybe nervous being around your colleagues or the boss or whatever that might be. And just this moment to transition, arrive in your body, you're much more receptive to what's about to happen. So that's just one of the ways that I love to use music is right off the top.
I love that. And I love that it comes through your experience over the years, right? You've tried it multiple ways, but again, grounding people in this. And I think people are more open to it today than they have been in such a long time. And we're just seeing how that connection between mind and body, it's not just a thing that we talk about and read about. It's something we really want to feel and do. Diane, I know this work is so close to your heart as well and how you do it. How would you like to share your thoughts on that neuroscience piece and what this does, what music does in an audience?
Right. It's so funny, Peter, because I've done the same thing. Do I start with music? Do I not? And it's funny because now I've landed at not. I am currently opening up with building the case for what the flow state is and getting buy-in from the audience, because I've determined that that's the foundation. And then once I get to a certain point, I can introduce the music. I basically say, uh, enough talking about flow. It's time to experience it together. And then I segue into the music. So I totally understand. There's so many different ways to incorporate music. So I was asked last summer, like, why music? What, is it just for entertainment? And so I did a little deep dive into what is the neuroscience of live music as opposed to recorded music. And what I learned is that, first of all, it lights up multiple parts of the brain, which is really interesting, because if you're listening to recorded music, apparently it doesn't. So there's something about live music that lights up multiple parts of the brain, which is what we want for our attendees to be, alert and activated. Then there are the emotions become heightened. Like Peter said, we get into our heart space, we get into our physiology. So all of our emotions get heightened. And then the third thing is that people experience this sense of a shared community experience. And that's what they experience. But what's happening under the hood is that heart rates and breathing rates sync up when groups of people listen to live music together.
I love that. Heart rates, and you said heart rates and
breathing rates.
Breathing rates. That's it. Heart rates and breathing rates sync up. Peter, have you heard this in terms of the data? And also, I mean, I know you feel it, but I also, this idea that like it's the live, version versus the recorded version that gets us fired up even more. What is your feeling about that?
Yeah, I've actually done work with an amazing organization called HeartMath, and they actually, put sensors on people and study heart rate variability. And there's all kinds of research around what happens. Diane was just talking about this sort of communal capital, this thing that happens when we're in an experience together, and the way that we actually sync up. And I think part of the important discussion here is, I think, the idea of music or even being in our hearts, right? It sort of lives in that, like, oh yeah, like that's a nice to have kind of a thing, but like we are a serious business here and we have things to get done. And we need our employees to know this, and this, and they need to have takeaways. And absolutely, like I am all for that. In order to do that, right? In order for people to be in a place that they're going to receive the key information, or for them to be a little more open to the new strategic plan or to the new technology you're going to be implementing. Like, what are you doing to think of their physiology? We're all just human beings after all. And what are we doing to sort of tend to that physiology, which lo and behold makes them much more open-minded. It makes them more willing to collaborate. It makes them more ready to receive the information. It makes them feel more connected to each other, to be breathing and having their heart rate synced up to each other and smiling or going on this experience together. There's actually so much value in that is connected to the hard numbers and these objectives that we want to achieve. They don't need to be separate. In fact, they're very complementary.
I love that. By the way, new words, communal capital, everybody. I love it. Communal capital. That is definitely a takeaway. All right, we're going to be moving into, I want to have a brief conversation with each of you. And then I know, Diane, you have a special performance for us as well. So Peter, why don't you join me for a little bit conversation here, my friend. It's just so wonderful from the first time we met, I knew that you had something truly special, the way you forget about captivating an audience from a stage with what you do. It's how present you are in the conversation and how grounded you are and how much you cared to learn to become a facilitator. You're not just what I call a road warrior speaker out there. The fact that you could do this deeper facilitation and you have so many programs around that. I cannot iterate enough to my colleagues how much value you bring to an event. And you're one of those speakers to get on a pre-booking call, you learn from you. You know what I mean? So first, thank you for taking this work, this industry to heart in that way, because as you know, not everybody can layer upon layer in that way. And you do it really well, my friend.
Thanks, Mijana. Well, I came into this work pretty unexpectedly. So, I was a, touring singer-songwriter playing 150, 200 shows a year, like, sleeping on floors, like hitting the road. And I did that for over a decade. And I think over the years of doing that, I developed such a deep respect and appreciation for the people that would come out, and I developed these connections. And also, when I was writing songs, if I hear an interview on the radio with somebody and I was inspired by that, I would sort of do a deep dive researching them before writing the song. And I think I just carried that over into speaking and I realized, oh my gosh, first of all, the pay scale is like 10x what it was as the touring singer songwriter. So I realized, okay, wow, these organizations are investing in me. But I also thought, okay, there's 1,000 people sitting in a theater right now or a ballroom. Every single one of those people is getting paid to listen to what I have to say for this hour. Like, I need to make sure that I'm showing a deep respect for that audience by not just opening a can and delivering a talk, but really understanding who I'm with. And I think also, from my time as a touring singer songwriter as well, I was always trying to like make the moment special. And I feel there's all these different factors that make something special. I'm actually working on this in my book right now, but one of the things that makes something feel special is people feel like, oh, this is happening for us, specifically for us right now. It's why when you go to a concert and the band says hello Cleveland and you're in Cleveland, they're like, that's for us, right? He didn't say hello Cleveland last night in Cincinnati. So I'm thinking about how can I create that specialness? And the way that I do that is by not just interviewing the meeting planner or whoever's convening the meeting, but I like to interview some of the people that are going to be in the audience, so I can take their stories, and that can become part of the fabric of the keynote. And I always ask to speak to like this diagonal slice of the organization, so I can represent as many people that are in the audience in the stories on stage. I can also harvest their language, right? A little thing like calling them associates instead of employees, if that's what they do at that organization, like all the little touches, the little language, the little acronyms, whatever that is. How can you make people feel like, oh, this person actually took the time to specifically understand who we are. He's sharing our stories with us. He's helping kind of reflect back to us who we are. That's special. And I think that's probably my favorite feedback that I receive from clients, when they say no one has cared about us as much as you have. But for me, it just feels like basic respect for the opportunity that I'm being given.
Oh, I love that so much. So one thing you said earlier is like this audience is paid to be there, right? And it is true. One of the things I hear agents say so often to me, they're like, my clients are wondering, is this speaker on that stage going to be worth me taking 50 of my top leaders away from their job today to sit in this audience and learn something? And so, and you are teaching also by example, right, Peter? Because the fact that you take time to understand their internal language, to be able to share that back, to figure that out, you're modeling for them how they as leaders or they as colleagues need to listen more to one another, to see each other more, to what we are all referring to as mattering, to understand how we all matter, how we all are interwoven. Speak a little bit to that, because it really builds on your whole celebration theme as well. And I want to talk about that too.
Yeah, again, this sort of goes back to what I was talking about earlier of this. There's always, been this separation between like the hard skills and the soft skills, and it's like, okay, now we need to focus on the hard skills. And so things like storytelling feels like, oh, that's not that important. But yet when you celebrate your stories, what are you actually doing? Is you're actually sort of taking what matters most and you're saying, hey, of all the moments of our day, of our week, of our quarter, which are the moments that were most significant? What are the successes that we're able to create? What are the challenges that we're able to overcome? And why don't we pause for a moment and actually extract the wisdom that those stories hold, so that they can become repeatable, right? So we can understand like what is it that's working, and also we can also unlock the emotional connection, the inspiration, right? You want your employees to show up motivated, connected to your purpose, so on and so forth. You can put your purpose on a website or put it on a mug and hand it to everybody, or you can celebrate stories of what that actually looks like in action. You can have an audience of people thinking, oh, I didn't realize that I actually am delivering on our purpose every day. And I didn't think that what I was doing is that special. And now I hear my story reflected back to me and I realize, oh, I am delivering on our purpose. And I want to double down on that. And so to me, it's life can be this blur, it can be this blob, and especially with, all the kind of headwinds of change and uncertainty and all these things that we're facing right now more than ever. I think it's more important than it's ever been before to make sure that we sort of mark these moments in time. We extract the wisdom, we extract the inspiration, and so that we can be that much more prepared and motivated to take on whatever is ahead.
Yeah, I love it. I remember the first time we had a conversation about the word celebration. Remember this? And we were, and I know you talked about it early on with a lot of people, and we're like, all right, are people going to want like the celebration? Are they going to get it? But this idea of we become what we celebrate, gosh, we need it so much, because even this is what I love about you too, is everything you talk about can relate to business, but also personal life, right? So as a mom, my daughter playing soccer, right? Am I going to celebrate her as a soccer player, or am I going to be critical of something? How many parents
Yeah.
come off and are critical of their kids? That's what they're going to remember. But if we talk and celebrate the moments and, even the challenges, because they're growth moments, you're helping us reframe how we're looking at this as leaders, how we are looking at it as colleagues for one another. And I think that's the power of it. And have you seen that change? Like, as you have been delivering this and celebrate what we matters as some of the words surrounding this, are you finding that people are connecting to it in this deeper way?
Yeah. So first of all, I like to make this distinction because people hear the word celebrate and they often think party, like they sort of conflate those two terms together. And I always say, nothing wrong with a great party. But I think in many ways we party to forget, we celebrate to remember. We party to forget, we celebrate to remember. So when I use the word celebrate, I'm really just talking about kind of taking what matters most and making it matter most with intention. And of course, as you do, like I spoke about earlier, you actually start to reveal the recipes of your success. You're sort of defining what matters most, both, as a human, as an organization. You're making those things repeatable, and you're unlocking that emotional connection, that inspiration that propels people to go and create more of it. And so you're right, though, too. When I first started using this word, it was a little confusing to people, right? Like, oh, celebrate, like we're at a business conference here, and so I sort of stuck by it, and then I started to see it click. And to be honest, I mentioned earlier, I was like sort of iterating of like, am I going to start with a song, not start with a song? So I would say I iterated on the way that I frame this and position this probably every time that I speak about it. I'm always trying to refine it and dial it in. But one of the moments that stood out to me was I was working with a company, and I had an interview with the CEO, and he said, "Peter, I'm super stressed out." And I was like, "Okay, tell me why." He said, "Well, for the last 4 years, year over year, we're like doubling our income. We're like growing, we're expanding, like we're doing the best we've ever done." And I said, like most companies would be pretty happy to be in that position. But he said, "I'm so stressed because how are we possibly going to continue doing this?" And I said, well, this is the perfect moment for you to celebrate what matters, because you obviously are doing all of these things that are working. But do you have a deep sense of what those are? What are all the moments, big and small, that are contributing to that success that you're seeing? And, a lot of times organizations, when the ship is going down, that's when they, bring in the consultant, or, sort of the Hail Mary trying to save things. But I actually think when you're on your way up, or when you're doing well, that's the moment to harvest. Like, what is it that we're doing? What are all the ways that people within this organization are delivering upon our purpose or living our values? And think about it, as the company's growing and you're bringing new people in, right? That's going to constantly get diluted. So how are you making sure that as you're bringing new people in, you're like, hey, these are the things that we're learning? Or, when John had this tough case over here, like this is how he handled it. Or, hey, you know, we realized that we don't all need to do things the same way, because this person did it this way and this person did it this way and this person did it this way, and you're empowered to do it in your own way, or whatever that might be. And so I remember walking away from that event and him just saying like, oh my gosh, like, wow, we really kind of have a sense of who we are. And that actually makes us more prepared for the headwinds ahead.
So good. All right. I love everything. We're going to bring Diane in, but before you go, Peter, think about, because I'm going to bring you back in with Diane at the end, and just think about anything that you want to be sort of the lasting piece of information that you want to share with our audience today, but we'll bring you back in. But for now, let's hear from Diane Allen. Oh, Diane, I am again also so excited to be having this conversation with you today. You and I have had some great calls over these past few months, and just looking at the marketplace and what are buyers buying, how are agents selling, right? And I think the thing that I've just always loved about you from the start is this idea of flow. And I want you to speak to it in all the ways you've heard it over the years and all the ways you've had to address it. But when I finally started speaking with you, I was like, yes, finally someone that, two things. You talk about the neuroscience of flow with it, and you've lived it and experienced it. You're sharing that. But the other thing that you do is this idea of how do we reverse engineer flow for ourselves, right? This, you know, we've been talking about self-leadership these past few years. It is more important than ever, as we said at the top of this hour, that leaders can't do this alone, right? So they need people like you in their audiences, helping their teams, helping everyone on their team understand how to be that leader and work from within and work in their flow state to their full capacity. So just share with us your, you know, for those people who don't know you, share with us that first start of this journey for you when you discovered, I need to reverse engineer this so I could tap into this every single time. What a feat, by the way.
That's interesting because when I was accepted to do a TEDx talk for TEDx Naperville, they specifically chose me because there are a number of flow state TED Talks out there. But what's unique about my take is that I'm like a flow for the people kind of person. The mostly elite. When you talk about, you know, the Navy SEALs or the top, you know, NFL teams or top musicians, right? It's always about flow, flow, flow. And you think about these elite echelons, but everybody is wired for flow. So I'm a flow for the people person. And as a teacher at heart, I am here to like educate everyone. The other reason why they chose me was because I mentioned that you can get into it. Like you can greatly increase the odds of getting into the flow state. It doesn't have to be some random thing. So, you know, like I do in my keynotes, we have to establish like what is flow state, because it's not fluff, it's not woo-woo, it's not flow from the, you know, Progressive Insurance. It is a state of mind. It is not a mindset. It is a mind state. And it is something that musicians experience all the time. When a musician gets into the music, they're getting into the flow state. When an athlete gets into the zone, they're getting into the flow state. And so as a New York City trained violinist, I went to the Manhattan School of Music, and I like New York City violin training is recognized throughout the world. I left on a high, like, okay, I've been skilled up, right? And I would show up to auditions because I wanted to get into an orchestra, be a member of an orchestra, and my nerves would get the better part of me. Like, I mean, all of that training, all of that hard work, and the nerves, that's what stops me? Like, are you kidding me, right? And so it was an audition where I randomly slipped into flow, okay? This is like 10 years after graduating. Underperforming over and over and over again at these auditions because of this issue. And so there was this one audition where I somehow slipped into flow. And that was the day I got hired to be the concertmaster of an orchestra for 15 years. So I literally went from like fully struggling to, okay, now I'm in the hot seat. I am second in command to the conductor. And I used flow to play my best because the neuroscience, I'll talk about the neuroscience in a second, but it sets you up to be at a peak state in a way that refuels you, not burns you out. How I led, I would literally use flow state to lead both the orchestra and the audience, because if you look at the way orchestra people sit, it's like dominoes, right? So no matter how well or poorly I play, that's going to ripple effect throughout the orchestra. So I was expected of me to always be at the top of my talent and lead. And how do you do all of that without burning out? Well, it's to activate the flow state.
Oh my gosh, so good. It's fun, interesting to me to hear you say after all that time, there was this one day and you're like, I just got into the flow. So how did you walk out from that and say I guess that was the day you also realized you needed to reverse engineer how to do it every single time?
Yes.
So how did that happen?
Yes. It happened at another performance fail. Ironically enough, I was a YouTube early adopter, and I was on there making violin tutorials. And as soon as I saw myself on video, it's like, I need to get some speaker training. And the last thing I expected was that I was going to fall in love with something else other than the violin and music. So I fell in love with speaking, and I was at an event and I was leading it. It was a small rural community service kind of thing. No reason to be nervous at all. And I had this idea, like, I love speaking, I love playing the violin. Why don't I do the two together? And so I found myself giving the pre-concert lecture, just having a great time. And then I sit down, turn around, give a big cue for the music to start, and my elbows were frozen. I had some sort of stress response run through my body. And it just like, where did that come from? And so I could not, the weird thing is that once that stress response, once the hormones that released into my bloodstream dissipated, I couldn't get into the music. It was like I had amnesia about it. And that was the day I sat down and I reverse engineered how to get into flow. And I came up with the 3-step flow strategy system that you see in my TEDx talk and that I talk about in my book. So I wanted to just talk about that stress response that happened in my body, because we are stressed. We are going through so much change. There's so much going on. If we just even think about the news, like there's a constant undercurrent of stress, and stress narrows focus. But when you're in flow, it broadens focus.
Yeah.
So the problem with stress is that it's like having blinders on. And when you're in flow, it opens you up to new ideas, to things coming together with the sense of ease, to being so immersed in your work that you lose complete track of time and you love what you do.
Yeah.
You instead of a negative feedback loop where you're pouring yourself into your work and your work is draining you, it's so rewarding that your own work refuels you, and overall you feel more meaning, joy, and fulfillment. And so Adam Grant gave a TED talk and a New York Times article on this very topic, and he talked about the mental health spectrum and how halfway between depression and flourishing, there's this midway point where you're fine, but you're not fine. Like you're functional, but you can't get motivated, and you're just kind of in this state of suspension. And the word for that is languishing. And Adam said, the antidote to go from languishing to flourishing is to activate the flow state. So positive psychology is where you'll find flow state under that umbrella. Positive psychology. Well, what's that? A lot of people don't know what that is. It's when you take a look at what's working well, reverse engineer that so you can create more of that goodness in your life.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, how you say it, stress narrows focus and flow broadens it. Any challenge, any issue, if you could turn that around, you start figuring out solutions. Take us through just a little, because your flow strategy is about understanding, balancing the skill and the passion, and just give us a quick hit of that.
Right. So I'm going to pick on Peter. I believe that each of us have our own unique way of activating flow. And so when I was listening to Peter talk about his work with minding the stories to celebrate. I know how important that is. I've learned the hard way that if you don't acknowledge your successes, it's as if they never happened. So
Mm.
I have to learn that lesson over and over again for myself. So I get it. I get the celebration. But as you were talking, Peter, I'm thinking, wow, okay, yes, he is a singer-songwriter. But you know what singer-songwriters are? They're lyricists. And what do lyricists do? They listen very deeply for the emotional connection. They listen really deeply for the storyline. They listen very deeply to what to shine the light on.
Mm.
And when you can define what that is for yourself, that's typically your secret sauce. That's that thing that makes you tick.
Mm.
And that's the thing that gets you into flow.
Yeah.
Why is that so meaningful? Why is it so meaningful for you, Peter, to use that part of you? And when I think about why it's so meaningful, I'm thinking about like the loftiest of values that pull the best out in us, like peace and love and joy, equality, freedom, well-being. For me, it's unity, whatever it is for you. And when you can define what that is for yourself, then maybe you're interrupted at work, you need to get back on track. This is how you can get yourself back in.
I love that. So I want a real practical example here. I love stories from the stage where you've been in front of an audience that is different, unique, one we don't hear of often. Like, was it the Fishermen's Association, or tell me what it was, but it was, tell me that
okay.
story. Yeah. Tell me this story, because that's where they heard you. And one of their leaders came up to you and said, I figured out a solution for a big problem we've had. And share that story, because I think that captures and encapsulates everything you've talked about here and why this is such a good topic for leaders today.
Right. So there's two different layers that I speak to. I speak to every individual in the audience, but we also have to speak to the organization. And flow state, there's a McKinsey & Company, decade-long McKinsey & Company study that said that when people work in flow, that it increases productivity up to 500%, learning speed up to 250%, and creativity up to 600%. And so for organizations, that's going to increase things like engagement and performance and retention and be able to recruit people to the culture, right? If you have like a flow culture built in.
Yeah.
And then for individuals, you have what I just did with Peter, like how did he uniquely get into flow? When individuals in the audience discover their own unique way. So with regards to organizations, I was up in Alaska, and this was for an HR conference. And this man, as soon as I got off stage, literally came running up. And he's this occupational safety consultant for the fishing industry in Alaska, which is enormous. And he describes this job, which is a conveyor belt where the fish come in, and these people wash the fish. And this conveyor belt goes all day. The fish go by all day. These people are washing the fish. The simplest job in the entire pipeline of the whole the whole fishing processing thing, right? And that's where they have the highest number of workplace injuries. And he's been scratching his head, like, why? Why is that the simplest, easiest job? And he realized, number one, there is no skill, there is no challenge, and there's no purpose. And at the intersection of skill, challenge, and purpose is the universal entry point into flow. And he realized that he's going to gamify this. He's gonna, maybe have a skills contest, right? Like have fun with it. Figure out ways to challenge them. Figure out ways to provide purpose for them, so that they could reduce those workplace injuries. And when I talk about that, it's like your typical Venn diagram: skill, challenge, purpose. The number of insights that people have are incredible, and it's like a typical, we can use this Monday morning kind of framework.
Oh my God, it's so good, right? I mean, again, such a, an industry we would never think of, a job that you don't, and then for him to quickly apply that and assess that in that way. I hope you kept his number, because I'd love to hear what happened on the back end of that. All right. Well, we want to come to your portion of performance for us. So lead us into what this piece is. It's the meditative piece. And the only thing I really want to kind of share from my perspective again is, these are things that have been talked about to some degree, or meditation and breath work and all these things. And I do believe that right now in all of corporate America, in any industry really, at home too, we are really looking to learn these skills in a bigger way, to make them habit forming, to be able to apply them instantaneously without thinking, go to them. I don't think enough people do that yet. And that is why I think it is so important. But share with us, lead us into what you're going to be setting us up for now.
Yeah. People.
With a dramatic pause. I love it, Diane. Like you.
All right. People will forget what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. We all know that saying. So if that's the case, if energy speaks louder than words, how can you make your energy speak? And I don't know if people realize this or not, but when I talked about being the concert master, I can't talk. We're just playing music. So how do you lead when you can't speak? That's that energetic piece. And so this is how to exude your leadership presence. And I'm going to walk you through a meditation right now. So go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath, and go ahead and put your hands on your heart. And then I want you to breathe as if your heart is a third lung. And I want you to think of something incredibly meaningful for you, something that has tremendous purpose. And I want you to notice that you're not feeling that in your head. You're feeling that in the 40,000 neurons of your heart. So according to the HeartMath Institute, when you're in your heart space, coming from a place of purpose, your electromagnetic field reaches out 3 feet all around you. And everyone in that sphere is going to sense your energy and sync up. And now they're exuding their 3-foot circles around them, and the ripple effect continues. So I want you to keep feeling this in your heart, keep sustaining this meaningful experience in your heart. And I want you to let the music amplify and expand your energy. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Oh, well, thank you. Oh, wow. You got to take a minute, right? You got to take a minute from those things. And you're so right. Like I'm here alone in my office, yet with both of you, and anyone joining us, of course. But, again, in a space on my own, to think of that vibration and that heart-centered feeling, with my colleagues in a room, with the audience, it really amplifies it. You feel it's just so deep, right?
So I encourage people, this is actually something that I share. It's like my opt-in for people at the end of my keynotes, or it's on the, it's at the footer of my website if you want as well. And it's the PDF of the steps and the music that you just heard, where I walk people through. And this is where I want people to use this. Let's say you're going into a really important meeting and you just really want to exude your leadership presence. Just stick on some earbuds and go through and do this. It doesn't take very long to set yourself up. And maybe you had a rough day and you want to recalibrate at the end of the day. This is another thing you can do. So this is my gift to everyone, to be able to get to that place into your heart space and to expand your energy and to just be present, and it's welcoming to everyone around you. It's like, it feels like the energy of enthusiasm.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a wonderful gift. Thank you. Thank you for here this moment, and also for giving us something we could follow up with ourselves. Peter, your thoughts as you listened and felt that emotion too. What were you thinking?
I mean, I love the invitation, Diane. I didn't actually know what was about to happen, and it's amazing. We're standing here, we're on a LinkedIn Live. There's a certain pressure to this, and it's amazing how even in the moment you can just drop into your heart. The music can transport you. I went to the memory. I felt the ease in my body, and yeah, just a beautiful gift to be able to do that. And I appreciate you reminding people that this is not a big thing that we need to do, right? It's the little things that make a big difference. Do you have even 30 seconds to ground yourself before the important conversation? And music is, I mean, we all know it. You hear a piece of music and within seconds, a tear comes to your eye, a memory floods, your body relaxes. It's that quick. And when we're in these high pressure situations, it's such a powerful resource.
We opened up by talking about the neuroscience of live music and how it compares to recorded music, right? And if I was thinking about this, if you have recorded music playing, do people get really silent as an audience? I mean, isn't there always like some sort of shuffling or something going on? But when you are performing live, right, the audience gets completely quiet and silent, right? And there's that unity of the energy, right? There's the heart rates and the breathing rates syncing up, right? You feel it. And this is why we're talking about reframing the experiential keynote. Yes, we're musicians, but we are creating these experiences. And I'm just so grateful to be with you here, both of you today. This is just like our idea of fun, right?
Fun and transformation, right? I truly believe it. And I want to give both of you time to close out with some of your thoughts. And I'll start with you, Peter, but and Diane, think about anything that, we had so many things we could talk about. We could go another hour with both of you. So think about what your last sort of thought you want to leave everybody with. You've already left us with so much, but Peter, on that note, just as you reflect on this conversations and your keynotes and facilitations that you've brought to so many audiences that change the different industries, what would you like to leave us with as we think about this more?
Well, I thought about it when you were giving me the question, and I channeled my inner flow, and I was like, okay, we're here talking about this, reframing the experiential keynote, and what are we really talking about? And the thing that came to me as I was just thinking about it and feeling into it was, in some ways, I feel like we're we're on this like final frontier of what's human, right? There's this melding that's happening between AI and technology, and who knows where the humanoid robotics or all these things that are coming down the pipeline. And I feel like there is a huge value in people remaining connected to that sense of humanity. And I know, just being out in the world, right? I was at a wedding recently and listening to the maid of honor speech, and I was like, I wonder if she wrote that, or this is like an AI output, or someone sends you an email, and like we're sort of questioning what's real, and it's really hard to discern even things that we can see on videos, photos. Like everything is sort of this hard to trust kind of a place. And so I feel like when you're bringing your people together and they're all there in their seats in the room, and there's music, there's someone speaking, there's people that are having this really human exchange, there's something that's so special, vital, important, unifying, and that's what I've always sort of stood for in my life. I run a songwriting retreat here, and it's like, yeah, AI could write you a song in 30 seconds. I bring people here, it takes 3.5 days. You could take a helicopter to the top of a mountain, you'd get the same view, but you would have missed the entire walk up and all the shared experiences. And so I feel like, someone could just say, hey, write me a keynote on this topic, and they'd have all the research and everything. They could walk out on stage and deliver it. So in some ways, I feel like we're talking about realness. We're talking about that thing that when people feel it, they know it. And that's what then creates the conditions, I think, for people to feel like, oh, I can drop in, I can kind of return to myself, I can re-engage, I can reconnect to like, why is it that I do what I do? What's it like to be in a communal experience with my fellow human beings all working together? And there is I would say, both intangible and very tangible power to that.
Yeah, I think, as you're right, it's going to be surfacing even more, and because of AI. And again, AI is going to help us do a lot, and is already helping us do a lot of great things. I hope it puts us in rooms with each other even more, right? Get us to do all the AI, to do all the mundane stuff, so we could show up in person, so we have more time to pick up a phone and call one another, so we could go to dinner, right? All the other things. There's so many great ways. Again, I'm trying to think of this from the flow state, Diane, and broaden my thoughts on all the good that will come. So thank you for that, Peter. Thank you for reminding us of all those nuances to how important this is, and connection, being present. And it is going to continue to be one of the most important things we do. Diane, what are some of your final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
Peter, you just described exactly what I experienced at a closing keynote that I did on Friday for an organization. They were hungry. They were so moved. I think they were reminded, right, of what it was like to be human. There were tears, right? There was hands on the heart. It was, my LinkedIn has been blown up ever since. Like, so I think that exactly, you nailed it. The thing, if I were to talk about the flow state aspect, it would be that everyone is wired to activate flow, and when you know how, then a little bit of flow state education. A lot of times, organizers will tell me afterwards, or people in the audience will say to me, I didn't know there was a name for that. And when you have just a little bit of education to tap into this optimal state of mind, when you feel your best and you perform your best, it's what I call like when your genius and your heart become one. And so when you do activate the flow state, you do connect what you love to the work that you do. And because everyone is wired for this, and it also gets into this peak performance state. I'm playing a high precision instrument, right? Under high pressure, right? So I relied on flow heavily for that. So when everybody could get into that peak state, then you're talking about all talent becoming top talent.
Yeah. Flow for the people. I love it, Diane, right? All talent becoming top talent. Remember that, everyone. Celebrate what matters. We become what we celebrate, as Peter shared with us in so many ways. And I'm just so grateful to both of you. The work that you're doing, the depth of work you're doing in terms of understanding the neuroscience of it, bringing those data points, being able to do the upfront interviews with more people than just the meeting planner, and really curating, what you're delivering. The performance under pressure, you both deliver on that. You've been doing this your whole life, and it just inspires me to be reminded, to your point, Diane, we are all built for this. We have the innate capacity in us. We need the stories and the strategies that are going to remind us to make it a habit. And I think both of you do that so incredibly well with your work. I'm truly honored to be working in this industry with you both. And I know colleagues who booked you and who represent you, and so many people who are out there just looking to put you on more stages. And if anyone who joined us here, from my colleagues to meeting planners to leaders, if you're looking ahead to conferences, to boardroom meetings, to C-suite leadership, I'm saying lately that when things matter, the rooms become smaller. We want the right people in those rooms, and those people need the strategies that, again, are those habit-forming transformational pieces. Peter Katz, Diane Allen, you create that transformation. Thank you, my friends. And thank you to everyone for joining us.
Thanks.